We've got David here with me. Hey, David, how you going?
Good.
We're going to talk about user onboarding. The format is always very casual. Feel free to jump in, ask questions. We're going to get stuck into some content. Let me just kick us off. I'm going to give you a little introduction. So myself, I'm Scott Middleton, the CEO and founder of Terem. We're a product development firm. We're on the AFR Fast 100 2 years running, and I've probably been involved in north of 61 major product launches, features, releases, whatever you want to call them. And there's probably a whole bunch more that we've failed out of the equation because they weren't going to fit. So next, I'm going to introduce David sitting next to me. So David has had a bit of a serial founder, has had multiple exits, and his most recent company is dedicated to onboarding. And so I'm really excited to have someone talking about onboarding. I just want to make sure, has everyone got sound for a second? Someone said no sound. I'll just keep talking, but yeah, awesome. It might be a sound like on your computer if others have got it. So yeah, I guess while David was working in Pointzi, founded Threatmetrix, a cybersecurity company, was sold for $830 million. And David had another exit before that. I think for me, David and I used to share an office, shared lots of ideas about technology companies, about getting started. So I'm really going to hand over to David now to talk about onboarding. Over to you, David.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And I might how's everyone going with sound? Broken bits of noise. I just wait a second. I'm just going to keep talking just to make sure the sound's going okay. No, not yet. I can hear fine. All right, look, we're going to kick on. For those having a few issues, suggest refreshing the browser.
You want to type that in? Or?
Yeah, I'll type. I'm gonna type in a few ideas, and I'll let David kick off. Over to you, David.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Take us through.
All right. So 3 startups in, and what I've seen over time is basically a lot of different startups, including our own, just really struggle with those first 5 minutes with users and stuff like that. So I thought that what we do is we start with the basics. And if you're not familiar with Dave McClure's Threatmetrix, this is the space where we're going to be today. I can bring this up here?
Yeah, go for it.
The mouse isn't on the screen at the moment, so I have to
click up there.
I'll click up here.
Yeah.
That'll take me to the next one, bring it back. Okay, good. Yeah, so this zone here is really the realm of the product managers. So above, you've got the marketers really own the acquisition space, and you've got a lot of tic-tacking between marketing because you want to make sure that you actually understand which channels are converting and things like that.
Yeah.
And you may want to change the actual activation or the onboarding process depending on the channel. We had one customer who had an application that had Jamie Oliver just doing blog posts. He was part of their team, and the conversions out of that organic channel was just way higher than anything paid they had.
Yeah.
Just because they had automatically bought into the process. So
yeah.
Of course, product managers own all the way through, but this is what we're talking about here today. So
it's interesting you've included retention in onboarding.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I would have just said activation.
Oh well, I'll show you a chart.
Okay,
I'll show you a graph which might do that. So to me, it's basically all the same thing. It's a yin and yang thing, or the tailor type thing that basically if you're not activating, you're churning.
Yeah.
So that sort of thing. So the key issue is really getting somebody to the aha in the first place. Like, how can you compress that time? So we'll have a look at a couple of things. So what does that look like here? So this is a chart of what's really going on in the user's head when they actually download an application, or whether they actually get to your landing page and they go through the registration as such. So they kind of start with a bit of optimism because they've read something about it. They love your content marketing, or they've read the message in the App Store, or they've had a referral or something like that. So they have this kind of starting point that's a little bit above zero. And then what they're doing is they're climbing this sort of first point of trying to establish value. So the y-axis on this chart is like, is this useful to me? not is it useful to the company that's selling it, but is it useful to me? And I've got a certain amount of time to do that. So the idea is to try and get that line to be extremely steep, so that in a very short period of time, then somebody can actually get to what I call the aha moment. And the point that I'm making here in this middle part here is this, they've got a job to be done. And I forgot to mention that we kind of like filter everything through the idea of goals and a job to be done. So if you haven't been to jtbd.info, it's out of Harvard, and it's a methodology which, have you covered it before and other things?
Not on the webinar yet, but there you go. You've given us a topic for next time.
Yeah. Okay. So it's in terms of like
Intercom uses it. They're massive advocates for it.
Okay. All right. So I'm a big fan of it as well too, because it helps create a lens for you to look at. And so really the aha moment is the first JTBD. So the user says, I want to do this on this product.
I've got this job to do.
Yep.
I'm going to try and do it with this product.
Can I hire this product to do this thing for me?
And the aha moment is, I can do the job.
Yeah. This is at the point where they can say, okay, I'm willing to invest more time in this. And so from there on, everything kind of flattens out. And so you get additional things like they level up, and you might get them from converting to, either registering or being paid or whatever. And the situation is that what you want to do is keep them on the up and up, which I call continuous onboarding. So continuous onboarding is not just that first 5 minutes, and that's why it ties into the retention quite a bit. Yeah. And so you've got this situation where hopefully what they're going to do is convert into that referrer, which is the last step in the Threatmetrix, which is where they invite things. Yeah. Particularly important. So if you go back and look at Atlassian's flywheel model, the Thomas Tung's blog post or whatever it was, about how did Atlassian grow, it's really about that flywheel effect of inside the corporate. So we'll come back to that with B2B.
But is that even onboarding? Or is that a bit outside the bounds here?
I think it's really kind of like onboarding of features. I think of continuous onboarding as that if you're successful as an app, you'll have feature number 2. So JDBT number 1.
So like activation is the onboarding onto the first feature.
Yeah. But then you're actually doing your onboarding onto
and that's it, like you're onboarding continuously to be made. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, so quite often people just kind of, and literally I'll show you an extreme example.
Yeah.
So people are saying things, is that
important? Lily's
okay.
Give me a hand.
All right. So let's crack on. So just in summary, really, if you can keep your line moving upwards here, so if you're above this line, as in the curve is steeper, then you're actually in the activation zone and you're keeping people happy. Yeah. Once people start to drop off down here, then obviously you're losing them. So that's just a quick summary of above and below the line in regards to the activated user. Yeah. So my summary, and you can go to Wikipedia and read that one there, but my summary is really, it's about helping them get the first or the primary job to be done. And so if you can nail that, that's where you've got that flattening off of the curve. You've achieved the main result. And we'll do some teardowns about that sort of stuff. A lot of detail on this page. What we're going to do is share the deck afterwards so that you can refer back to some of these things. But just in brief summary, we'll come back to this from an analytics perspective, but it's really important to think about the metrics of it. So one of the things I'm pretty sort of counterintuitive on is the idea of goals versus personas. So HubSpot, with their content marketing really created the ideas of personas, and you can see other companies and products in the marketing sector, whether it's, like if you think of Exact Target or any of those kind of drip companies, they tend to think of personas. Once somebody's inside the application, I think you should stop thinking about that and think about goals. And so a goal is really the job. It's the job to be done. So goals and job to be done. Yeah. So I haven't seen products like us actually start to use the word, job. Because goals is a little bit sort of more universal at this particular stage. But you will see tools with JDBD at some stage. So I think that'll evolve out. But I think really important, super important is the goals.
This is really interesting. So you're saying you kind of want to take, once you've got people into the app, personas fade away, become secondary.
No, there's still a segmentation component, so you still want to do that. Yeah. But those personas still have a goal. And
you're really thinking goals. Goals are jobs to be done.
Yeah, and the second point here is it's not your goals, it's their goals. So you got to refixate your attention on sure, I want to activate people, but I'm only going to activate people if it's their goal. So I have a blog post. I've got a link to that in the back of this about, segments are cool, but goals are better type stuff. So I want to whiz through these things, but just go for it. Basically all those kind of things like the session length and that compression of the time to actually completing a goal. So I'd be putting your analytics on something that's like, what do you think is the primary use case to see how you can actually smooth and compress the time. And I talk in the anti-patterns about things like that. Again, whatever you're doing needs to tie back to your own organization's OKRs. So if you're not using OKRs, then you want to do something like that. Okay. And the OMTM, which is the one metric that matters. So for a product manager, the typical sort of thing is retention or conversion in terms of activation and stuff like that. So there's a bunch of things there which we'll just kind of skip for now, but I've got them in the deck so people can refer to later. And this is the point I was making about continuous onboarding, is that okay, you get that first aha, but activation is an ongoing kind of basis and where you can go deeper and deeper. So you've always got the first step, which is do now right up front, is to actually onboard and explain them. So the onboard in that situation is getting them through to the aha. But then you've got feature discovery, which is, it's not really talked about very much in the marketplace because everybody's really getting crushed at the churn rate. The day 0, day 3 churn is a killer.
The do later stuff is kind of really relevant to the in a way, big successful products. Or like, why are we not talking about the do later?
So the do later. So the reason why we exist is for companies that have 2 features. So like if you are an app that actually says yo, that's one feature. And so that does that, and it does that very well. And Uber, you may recall that at one stage Uber actually put Uber Eats inside the Uber app, so they were rolling out a second major feature in the app. So that's a really interesting use case. That by far and away, it had more use cases around billing and tickets and expense claims and stuff like that. So they had plenty of features by that stage.
I'm just going to pause for a sec.
Sure.
Cool. Keep going. All right. So where were we?
We were
talking about. You were talking about 2 feature onboarding, and then we were talking about whether companies onboarding.
So the Uber example is they tried to initially wedge Uber Eats inside Uber, so that's like a major kind of feature addition, and you might recall that it was inside the one app, and so that's that's feature discovery, right? So they're obviously not going to silently install it and then not push people to it. So that's deepening engagement. Why is that important? Well, most enterprise apps, they don't even have to be super high in terms of their users, but if you're an enterprise app that's actually doing some sort of B2B thing, or even you're a B2C, so say a bank rolls out cardless cash, or they roll out foreign exchange inside the mobile app or something like that, then you want to be able to teach people how to use that particular stuff. So anyway, that's that. All right, so I'm going to talk about the teardowns, just give you a couple of examples. So it's literally basically these first steps here of getting to that first JDBD. So as you said, the pure onboarding. And I'll talk about patterns and anti-patterns. So an anti-pattern here. So first what we're going to do is talk about a couple of B2Cs. It's logical to kind of talk about mobile from a B2C perspective.
Now, when we were talking about this webinar, you were telling, I saw the term for the very first time, FTUX. It's in this slide, so
it's not a rude word.
I'd love
it might be around your neighborhood.
I'd love to know why. FTUX. What is it?
What could it be? It's first time user experience.
So
first time user experience, which is literally all you've got in a lot of cases, specifically in mobile. It's all you've got. And so what I've got here is I've got 2 meditation apps that are just slightly different. I thought I'll just pick a topic. And so here what we've got is everybody's seen these things. And everybody whizzes through them. Right? So this is in your face. You're trying to get a meditation up. You want to hear what a guided meditation sounds like. And somebody throws this up in front of you because the product team sat around and said, onboarding. Onboarding is one of those things where you do like a carousel. So what happened is it's a bit 2018, but 2019 is probably it's starting to die off a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe 2017, 2018. That carousels equals onboarding, but it's kind of an anti-pattern to think about, which is like a pattern that you don't necessarily.
Well, because often you don't get through to the next swipe.
No.
Like that's the issue with carousels is that, that you basically got to rely on the fact that no one's going to see the second, third, or fourth screen. They're only going to see that first one.
Yeah.
So if you don't get them there, you lost them.
Yeah. Where this is really good is where you're actually, I'm actually kind of advocating that you can do this when you are announcing Uber Eats inside your app to introduce you to the overall concept.
Yeah.
But what you should be doing is explaining your business here, not explaining the application.
Yeah.
Now that I've said that, here's a counter argument, which is another one. And what they've done is they've actually just done a little bit of contextual stuff. So it's a little bit better. You can actually automatically just go and click this and get into that particular thing. So it's guiding you. So I like this a little bit better.
So this is interesting because we've been talking about jobs to be done. It's kind of like they haven't picked the main job to be done. Because
they don't care.
I mean, am I going to take a restful break or am I going to enjoy a daily commute? Is this a good, should they be more specific about the job they're trying to help someone achieve?
It's particularly problematic in mobile in the sense that you don't, unless you're using an advertising thing that's got attribution on it. So you're using Apps Flyer for ads, or you're using a branch for organic attribution. Then you don't actually know what the source is, and quite often you don't have that. So you're very, like at the first load time, you're very blind in regards to what this user's doing.
For a mobile app, you don't know yet.
But
for web, you might know, because you might be able to attach.
In mobile, you can solve this problem too. I've actually got some patterns, and you'll recognize you'll recognize these brands about some better examples. Yeah, so here's one where they've decided to get in the way a little bit. So it's a little bit better than this, which is a blocker. Yeah. So the users should be able to get, you can see here that what they're trying to do down the bottom is force you to sign up and stuff like that. Yeah. Sure, they've got to get started, but the question is, where does that take me? So anyway, there's that. Right, so here we are, we're looking at domain, and this is a pattern. I really wanted to kind of express how these people do something really well.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'll show you realestate.com as well later on, but basically I'm going to do the clicky thing here. So go back. So what do I do? Already they've figured out they're getting me in my persona here, because it's a combination of a goal and a persona, right? Yep. What's the job to be done? The job to be done is to identify whether there's properties in an area that I'd be interested to go and visit or find out the price of. Right? Yeah. Okay, so they give you the option to do here. So this is great onboarding, very 1, 2, 3 clicks sort of thing, and I'm there. Yeah. So I can put in exactly the range I do, and bingo, when I get to the third and the fourth things, I'm already at a point where I can then go further. So first job to be done. So I think this is a beautiful, beautiful sort of experience. Nothing got in the way. I can do this without logging in. Yeah. Right. So everything can be done anonymously.
And the language is speaks to my job to be done. I want to buy.
Yes.
I want to rent.
Yeah. 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 And they've customized the app on that basis. So they've got the budget to do that. They've built it right, all that sort of thing. What I wanted to point out here was some really interesting deferrals of things that sometimes people put up front. So like asking people to register up front. I think of that as an anti-pattern, and we'll come back to that in the B2B type space. But so you can see here that if I want to save that property away, now domain has got me to commit to the application. I'm already interested in it, and I actually have to register at this particular point in time. So there, I'm on this kind of journey where now registration, there's enough value being presented to me. So it's really about, I've gone up that steep curve of that first job to be done. Yeah. And I've got to the aha on that. I've found something that satisfies that. Now I'm moving on to the second thing, which is, what am I going to do? I'm going to visit the site or find out more about it. Can you send me a contract, or what's the strata fees? So that's the second job. I want to know more about that. Don't need to register here. So Domain have made a decision not to force the user to register. And I think that's brilliant as well too, so that they can actually get transactional with the agent at this particular stage, But here they've got the option for you if you really want to get more utility out of the application, do that. And then what they then do is when I'm sharing this with my wife, then they actually suggest, hey, why don't you just kind of like work on this together? You can have a shared list, but you've got to sign up. So that like there's an incredibly strong positive that goes with the challenge of actually going through a registration process.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of like a beautiful example of how they've offered value.
And at what point for you do you say that they're onboarded? Is that, or they're activated? Am I activated once I've successfully found a property? Am I activated once I've made an inquiry, the second job to be done? Or am I only activated once I've given you my email address and a password?
Yeah. Okay, great question. So it's different for every application. So the classic was Facebook was invite some friends, etc. It was 7 friends in 10 days or something like that.
Yeah.
I can't remember whether it was Pandora or Spotify. It was basically make a playlist, share it with a friend, and a number of plays. Yeah. So it's meaningful to you at each time. So you would say that somewhere in that journey, you've got a way of being able to reach out to that user again, either by push notifications or by email. Emails. You've got some way of actually creating some sort of potentially symmetrical relationship with them.
Yeah.
And being able to actually try and recruit them back and whatever,
So like I've installed the domain app. In Domain's case,
you had to do that to get here, right?
Yeah. And if I'm just browsing online, then I'm not
activated. Yeah. So I would say that there's a lot of, there would be a lot of reasons why they would do something like this kind of prompt, because they've figured out what the key use cases are there that are about getting a decent sort of lock-in with that user. So it's a good question, and so it's different for everybody. So I believe it's actually after the AHA.
Yeah.
So activation is a couple of different sort of things that matter to you as a business.
Yeah.
That probably support your OKR or your OMTM.
Yeah.
The one metrics that matters, because it's going to be eyeballs, it's going to be registered users, it's going to be revenue, etc. Yeah. So anyway. What I really like about this also is they've given you 2 points of exit. So I think this is another aspect, is you may have an agenda to try and get their email address or something like that, but really it's their journey. So you should give them the opportunity to opt out of those particular things if they're just not the right user. Yeah. So there's a podcast now. It's a video I've got on the site where I did with Rachel she was ex Eventbrite, and she talks about potential to anger, or potential to delight, and potential to anger.
Yeah, okay.
And anywhere along a journey, you're building up goodwill
or angry.
Or angry.
Yeah.
And some events, like say a purchase.
Yeah.
A purchase is actually, if that fails, that's actually a really, it's like a low potential to delight, but it's a very high potential to anger. Yeah. Because the person's worked all the way up to that point. Yeah. So very specific for each business. Just to be fair, here's realestate.com.au. I love these apps in the sense that, basically, first thing that you see when you get into the application is you actually can get on with the job.
Value, yep.
So same process, go through that stuff, and here they actually are a little bit more explicit about the registration at that stage. That's saving the list. If you go to REA's web, exactly the same thing, that if you want to search there, then you basically get the pop-up registration. So very uniform and consistent experience from a B2C perspective, regardless of how you come in. They've actually adopted the same thing there. But again, everything's around the prime use case of showing some properties that I might be interested in going on with. Okay, so that's mobile and B2C.
Consumer,
So I deliberately chose,
and also interesting in that it's an ad supported model, in that the agents are paying, the house buyers are paying the agents to pay REA and Domain to list the ad.
Right.
So in a way,
the house sellers are.
Yeah, sorry, and then it's the sellers, and the Domain doesn't make money directly from me as a browser of houses, which I think plays into the way structured it a bit as well.
They're the user, not the customer. So there's about 1,000 different things we could talk about in this session.
Well, but then this one's interesting to me now because this is like a B2B. You kind of got to get into it, start using it, and commit to it to actually get value. So I'll leave you to.
Yeah, look, it's a bit of a different beast to these consumer. So the mobile consumer things like mobile churn is in, day zero churn is above 80%. Quite often it's in the 90s. Day three, it's a bloodbath really. Mobile's a bloodbath in that sense. B2B SaaS is a really interesting sort of space, and I picked this company because it's really interesting sector. If you don't know Monday.com, they're a productivity application. They're coming into a sector that has pretty powerful established players like Trello and Asana and so on. So everybody's had a go at productivity over time. There's lots of different ways of doing it. You could even say Jira does part of this as well, as well too. So what they've got to do is they've got to focus on really fast activation. And the reason why I chose this one is they throw everything at onboarding. They literally throw everything at it. And because you've got this situation that basically the churn potential is still very high because there's so many other players in the marketplace. So it's almost as difficult as what mobile is. So anyway, let's have a look. Okay, so very different. So you've got this kind of thing where in B2B you can get away with asking for an email.
I haven't got my aha moment yet. You want my email?
And so there'd be debates about how much you can kind of give away on that level. I think. So there's that. But what's interesting about what these guys do is they do a progressive disclosure UX, which I really like, which is what I call cognitive overload, that you're not trying to overload the user with too much stuff at once. So you go through that, you say, get started in 3 simple steps. Okay, well, you count the steps here. What happens is okay, well, we've got the step here, and then another one comes, oh, you're almost there. And then this thing progressively, as you fill out one field,
it's 4 already.
As you fill out one field, it's sneaky or cheeky, but it actually does does kind of like lock you into doing that. So we use a little bit of that ourselves on our own dashboard, but we kind of mark what's mandatory and what isn't in that situation. So it is a kind of what's happening there is the journey's unfolding for the user, and they're already committed this. If you're familiar with,
I'm feeling misled.
Sunk cost bias. So it's
sunk cost fallacy.
That bias of that I'm already invested. Commitment bias. Sorry, not sunk cost. That's sort of the same. Sort of a similarity thing. Okay. So once I get in, the very first thing I get, I like this from and getting to an aha.
We're up to 6 steps. They promised me 3.
Now you're inside the or behind the curtain.
Oh right, it's different.
Now you're inside the front door. But what it does do is it actually gets you to that first job to be done, which is to make some sort of board, right?
So, sorry, I'll let you keep going but creating a board is not a job to be done. I don't sign up to Monday to create a job to create a board.
I think it's a good point. So you say, what you could. So the way they do this is that you can unfold this and look for use cases. So I have a use case, and my use case that I'll choose here is a roadmap. But there could be other types of things, such as communications. And you're right that they could eliminate this kind of idea of a board. I keep on putting my hand up. They could eliminate that and say, okay, well, what do you want to do? And so yes, that could be a better way of doing things. But this is a very highly funded company as well too. So it's got a truckload of money to try different things over time. So anything I do,
you would assume they've iterated a bit or might be changed.
And there may even be ABs in here and stuff like that. So.
So they're pushing us to click this.
So it's literally, there's nothing else to do on the screen here. So it's like a modal, but it's actually a contextual modal. So it's a tip that's pointing you at stuff. And that's kind of like the business we're in, to actually guide the user through that sort of thing. So cognitive overload's been eliminated by just doing one job. I unfold that stuff, and then I get a bunch of things that I can choose.
Bug queue, sprint planning.
And now you're starting to see the jobs. And so, like one click, I actually get to see what real data would be like. So this is the empty state situation.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, when they do an app, it's like, okay,
especially a productivity app. You kind of like,
Yeah.
I'm not sure how to fill it out, or I don't want the time to fill it out.
Yeah.
But now I can see, oh, cool, here's what a real one looks like.
Yeah. And so sample data is not that hard, or having really great templates is not that hard. It's just that from an engineering perspective, it probably got pushed down. So you wanted to get live, you wanted to get your features done, but it kind of got pushed down until a later thing. So here what they do is they put it front and center in the user's journey.
Yeah.
And so they're still not activated, but you can kind of get a sense that they may be at aha now.
Yeah.
In the sense that, oh wow, there's all these different things I can do. It's not just sprint planning, or it's not just roadmap.
Yeah.
But there's a whole bunch of other stuff I could use this for.
Yeah.
Yeah. They use tooltips to sort of like help explain things. So this is interesting as well too.
Yeah.
So they can do that. So that's a good thing to do, because you can see there's more on that page. There's a lot more. Can I get that? Yeah. Oh, what's that? What was that?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of information on that page. And so the tooltips really help on that side of it.
Yeah.
Right. I don't like this particular thing. This is really, this is kind of like your goal instead of their goal. So your goal is literally the flywheel. Right?
Yeah.
I want to create viral sharing inside an organization. But they do position themselves as
it's like this is Monday's goal.
Monday's
to create viral sharing, not necessarily the user's goal.
Yes, we don't know if it is a single player mode or not.
Yeah.
They do provide you with this down here. So I think from a pattern perspective, it's on the way to being an anti-pattern, unless you actually know.
Because I found when I set up Monday, I was like, I'm not ready to invite people to this yet, because I don't know if I like it.
Right.
I don't want to spam my team with it. I don't want to bother them.
Yeah.
Let me play around.
I'm evaluating.
Yeah.
I'm evaluating.
Yeah.
So they do sort of, let you get out of it, that escape clause.
Yeah.
They do give you that.
It does have that, because I actually signed up to coincidence, but was checking out Monday.com recently, and that pop up in terms of your delight and anger.
Yeah,
it actually, I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you said that, because we didn't coordinate this. This is spontaneous. So we agree on that. That's kind of semi-egregious. So yeah. So, but you can see what their goal is that they position themselves as 4 teams. Yeah. So that's the reason why you're evaluating in the first place. You actually are in their target group. So if it was me at home just trying to figure out what jobs I need to do around the house, then it definitely wouldn't work. I was just going to show this just in terms of the importance of having some sort of escape clause. I don't know whether this is going to animate or not. Will it animate? Oh yeah. So see how we've got the later button here. So when people throw up these prompts, you've got the 2 escape things of the X and so on, and when the user clicks OK, then you can just kind of move on to those other types of things. But I think there's always room in the screen real estate, whether it's mobile or web, to actually provide
an escape path.
A decency around that.
Yeah.
So you're not trying to force
get
people.
me out of the tour, get me out of the way, you're trying to nudge me, let me do it myself.
Yeah. Because it is not necessarily the job to be done unless they want help to get that job done. So that tour prompt is for the people who want that. Yeah. And it's a very different thing to the carousels that we showed you before, which is like in your face and very, very difficult to figure out how to escape from. Progress bars, really great in terms of, okay, you may say that Monday may say that, you've got to achieve a certain things in order to be activated in their context. I don't know what it is, but they help you with an onboarding checklist that you get to understand a bunch of different things about what they do. So, you can watch these videos and it's done with this progress bar. So you can see, now I'll complete this task by actually playing this particular video. Again, it's really an education step, but it's really around educating you. It feels like a diversion from the JWD type thing, but it is about the time. Like it's not actually, usually it sits down the bottom, so it's not actually in your face, but it does give you visual feedback with the progress bar that you're not actually. So anyway, that's that.
Is this too much? Are they trying to do too many onboarding tricks?
I think it was a good one for me to use because they literally do throw the kitchen sink at it, and the point is like sometimes you can be a little bit toxic if you've got too much venture funding to do that, and but I think there's kind of like you could pick and choose some of these elements to do that. Again, I don't know whether all that registration information that we had at the start should feed into what the user's trying to achieve.
Because I kind of feel like the original Jira is the complete anti-pattern to this, and was the hardest, most difficult thing to use on board.
Yeah,
and they're throwing everything like at this thing, and so I'm just curious. I mean, and maybe therein is the anti-pattern. Like, it really appealed to engineers because they had to figure it out.
Well, this is the thing with Jira, that it basically grew out of engineering. The flywheel was engineering.
Yeah,
and there was the head of Spotify said to me once that basically your power users treat your application like an operating system, right? So they'll figure out how to use the product in ways that you didn't do it. So you need to watch your power users. This is a completely different topic, but what Atlassian had with Jira was that people basically figured out that it was fit for their purpose, and where it kind of went pear-shaped was growing and growing. It was having people like, people like marketers or product managers coming in, and like the product management interface a year or two ago was diabolical in terms of performance and all that, the re-rendering of the screen and stuff like that. It was absolutely diabolical because they tried to sort of make a developer's tool do that. So complete anti-pattern. I was going to actually talk about it because literally it was so difficult and it sort of outgrown its own usefulness in what it was initially. It was probably perfect for developers initially. So these guys come at it fresh, clean sheet of paper. What are the use cases we're going to do? One click and I can see those use cases. The videos, definitely they've got that for deepening engagement. So, if you've got the money, then you can do it. I think they've made some aggressive steps in there to try and capture you. And maybe they've discovered via the analytics that actually we make more people happy than we irritate more people. So anyway, but again, it's still letting the user self-pace. So I think that's kind of interesting, that they've done that. Second visit, it's really interesting. You come back and second visit and you're actually presented with the inbox. You're not presented with your board again. So that's kind of what's that say?
About 5 minutes.
Oh, okay. He's secretly telling me.
I'm saying not saying.
Okay, so we'll whiz through this, but I just wanted to point out checklists. And
well, they've even added more in. They've got more checklists from onboarding.
Spoke too soon. So checklists again. LinkedIn was kind of like a pioneer in this in terms of completing your profile.
How do you how does someone prioritize which one of these to use?
Because
you're saying really well venture funded company, they can do it. But what if you don't have that? And what if you're constrained? Everyone's constrained in some way. How do you pick which ones you go for?
Well, I think I'll kind of come back to that. Because products like us do that. So there'll be hopefully what we've got is really 93% content and 7% commercial in this, and I'll talk about that later. But literally, it's got to come back to like with these checklists. It's like, okay, well, what does the user want to achieve, and what do we want to achieve, and then cluster things around that. I think that kind of naturally works in teams, unless somebody's particularly sort of like enamored with the new shiny object. Progress bars, we've got to use progress bars. That sort of thing. So a checklist, it may be competitive with a progress bar. In this particular case, you'd have to say the video progress bar is superfluous if this is really what they want to achieve. But you can see it's kind of subtle. The progress bar, it's down here on the right hand side.
Another one.
So it is self-paced and so on. Again, these other things like gamification. I've got the sort of the visual feedback on that. Out of band stuff. So onboarding is not just necessarily inside the application. It's push notifications, it's emails, it's transactional emails, it's marketing drip emails. It's the desktop push as well too. So there's a lot of different things that make up that experience, particularly trying to get somebody back in after day zero. So that sort of stuff. We spoke a little bit about before, so I've moved on from the Monday example now, just sort of cracking on. So some of the other things you want to do is this do later feature discovery stuff. So they've facilitated inside domain things that matter to me, such as school districts or travel and stuff like that. So really interesting, they've buried that inside the application. So you may roll those sorts of things out. We have customers who, when they do a new feature, they've basically spent the last 6 weeks in a sprint, several sprints, getting a feature done, and then they'll launch it and nobody uses it. And so that's kind of like, oh well, it was buried. Should we put it on the top? Well, you can use different type of tips and announcements and things like that to do feature discovery. And give people a guide. Or we've just released cardless cash in. You can go get cardless cash from the ATM.
The combo tab actually does that pretty well.
That's right. So so anyway, that's revealing the secondary features, etc.
Best time,
interesting thing here. This is just 2 examples of how Google uses feature discovery. So those kind of things like simple tips.
Yeah, really simple. Yeah.
So super contextual. So you can see it's really pointing at the object to touch.
And I've even got emails to your one on the right there. I've even got emails from Google as well around, hey, with the Google Voice, did you know you can also say these things, like ask it what time of day it is.
Right.
Like
So
email's another channel, right?
So they're like onboarding a new concept for people, which is talking to computers. So they've got to do a lot of education on that. So it's no surprise it's coming via a couple of different formats, like email. Email's a good long form education. This is Slack. So little announcements like this are, they can be part of the onboarding.
I've never seen that before, and I use Slack.
Top right hand side. Glowing dots. This is particularly good from a feature discovery perspective. Typically, what we do is we allow that to show, and then once the users engage with it, once it goes away,
show it.
So it's not spamming them. This is another kind of example. You'd be surprised to think if that was really onboarding as such, but it does help activate a user around a feature.
If they're not sure,
it's very subtle. Doesn't have to be coded anymore. It can be used. Tools like us allow you to drop that in, so a product manager can do that without having to sort of disrupt the product roadmap or get the developers working on boring things. So that leads to like a pop-up tooltip or something like that. Drucker says, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. So obviously analytics are really super important there. So like measuring the uplift around particular things is important. So these are just kind of like some examples. So if I pick this one down here, this is like an A/B test that we do. So I don't know whether the widget's in the way. But anyway, this blue line was the app as it was in its normal state. And then the green is when like a flow to explain things was being used. And so, number of people in the audience was matched, certain number of people saw it. The little red ones are a small percentage actually, just said bugger off, I don't want to do anything with it.
You've made me angry.
Or
maybe just said no.
No, the other one said, okay, I'll deal with this later. And then what you've got here is the goal. You're measuring against the goal, what you want to achieve. And so you can see product managers don't necessarily need to think about statistical significance. Like was it, a certain percentage? It's like quite often to the eye, it's actually useful that it's actually just doing it. This is a kind of another thing with guides and things like that, well, if I've got people only watching through to the 3rd step, then why would I actually continue to sort of roll out 6-step guides? Customers of ours, sometimes they get excited and, roll out a 20-step thing. It's like, no. Do 5 steps of 4 or something like that. That sort of thing. Getting feedback. I mean, NPS has become super popular in the last 2 years. Again, there's been a lot of small tools come out on that, but we actually think that it should be used really sparsely, and you should be using feedback for things that are more to do with the user's journey. I don't know whether this is just kind of like one example of whipping up a question. Will YouTube work?
Right.
Okay, so here I'm just putting a tip on top of Jira, the new Jira. So, a survey. So I'm just going to ask a question. So we can just basically roll that out. And it's really around, I target this at users who've used the feature. I've targeted users who haven't used the feature and may like to get a guide or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So I can just basically roll that out, give them,
Drop it in.
so that's not an NPS thing, but it's actually kind of like something that really helps you with
N specific, because I think everyone's a bit NPS'd out.
Yeah,
There's
and
just way too much NPSing going on.
Yeah.
Would you rate us 1 to 10? I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah, so that point about
Is
fastly.
this screen good? Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah. Like, so NPS is really down outside the pirate metrics. It's down at the referrer end. So I think it's, it's
also only an indicator of referral. It's not the actual referral. Like, I'm a huge proponent of like, I'd rather measure an actual referral than someone's intention to refer.
Yeah, spot on.
Because I mean, I just submitted a referral for someone earlier today, and I gave them 10, but that was just because like I felt like I was going to go into some algorithm that might give them an advantage, and I like them. Like,
yeah, the Uber drivers all get 5, otherwise they get sacked.
Yeah.
All right, so obviously we're kind of out on time, but this is the do's and don'ts is like, okay, well, the patterns and the anti-patterns. So, I think I've covered some of these things here. Align with the user's first job to be done.
Yeah.
The cognitive overload aspect of it. One of the things I didn't talk about is if you must make people log in, then consider, this magic link has been fashionable with a couple of different apps, but certainly using social or auth type things are really good. So those sorts of things. But the converse of that is in B2C, don't force people to actually register before a hire. It amazes me over the years how many applications actually do force mobile apps. You know how hard it is to key in stuff.
Yeah.
So that's a real barrier in terms of activation and onboarding.
Yeah.
So, and it's just standing right in the way of AHA. We've talked about carousels, big long guides, bouncing people out of an application to an explanation on the knowledge base or bouncing them out to an external video. By all means, use videos or whatever. If you can't do a guide that actually takes the user right inside the application, then use a video where people have been getting stuck. And again, don't target that at the personas or not the personas, the people who've already achieved that goal. Use goals to actually segment how you want to actually get that messaging going. So, and obviously drips and stuff like that are super important, but we like to think mostly like analytics. So if you've got your mixed panels and your amplitudes and your Google Analytics, we think there's a subset of things around uplift, which is basically the product manager wants to run things and just see what the uplift around the goal was.
Yeah.
So of course you can do that in mixed panel, but it's actually a bit, it's almost like I've got to treat it like an operating system. It's a bit hard.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point why companies like us exist is that what Monday can do, with their $234 million of investment is, that's really cool. They can throw the kitchen sink at things, but what are you going to do? And to your point, which one of these am I going to pick? Well, you might be able to actually do a bunch of those things if you use a platform like us.
Yeah, there's tools like you guys out there that can cover the breadth or do single things, and then you can test them out cheaply and be like, what's going to work for us? Yeah, that's right. Because the point I make here is that your engineers are busy. Yeah.
Your engineers want to work on cool features.
They allege they're busy.
No,
they're definitely
don't go there, Scott.
Yeah.
So, they want to work on cool features.
I'm an engineer, by the way.
So am I. The point is the difference in cadence that you.
Well, not just you want to work on cool features. Like the engineer is the one that's doing the heavy lifting, and stuff like showing someone a pop-up saying, "Is this a good feature or not?" is not your heavy lifting that you want your talented engineers doing.
So I kind of think of it as our sector's a little bit like writing back in the early 2000s. You used to write your own HTML emails. Yeah. Now everybody just uses MailChimp or 1,000 different products, right? Yeah. And so you've got that scenario that what we think should be coded today is really an itch that needs to be scratched. And the companies that ultimately create a platform for that makes it easy. Yeah. And so the same for transactional stuff. So why is SendGrid great? Why is Twilio great? All of those sorts of things were, at some stage the engineer said that we could do that here. Yeah. But the point is that it clogs the backlog and slows down the sprints. So wherever you can kind of get a situation where, you can separate your engagement layer from your feature layer.
Yeah.
So you've got your design down here, and the engineers absolutely do this. But transactional emails, guides, tips, things like that, they sit above, and they should operate at a different cadence. So onboarding isn't about coding, coded features. We think that quite often onboarding is really what we saw there with domain was like that's a coded experience and beautiful. There wasn't any guides, wasn't any videos, and that's specifically B2C specifically. You must code that job to be
much
done.
simpler interactions though.
Second feature, more complex interfaces, etc. You can start to think about whether you can use tools to sort of help out.
Okay.
And so those, whether it's tips, whether it's progress bars, whether it's carousels, surveys, videos, etc. Those are the kind of things that we support. And so lastly, what I did here was some of the things I've referenced verbally. So when we post the deck, people can click through.
Awesome.
Some of it's mine, some of it's other people's, and so on. And that's me.
Cool.
So that's.
Thank you, David. Thanks for that. I just before we sign off, we've got about 5 minutes. Any questions anyone's got for David on onboarding, or just questions in general about onboarding?
So people are going to.
Yeah, we can see great stuff from Kate.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kate.
Go ahead.
Fire away, Ewan, if you've got a question. Ewan is typing.
I think the way that they do the AMAs on Reddit is they dump all the questions up front, but it's it's usually kind of like based around the personality or whatever. So
doing onboarding with 4 steps on mobile and versus a single screen scroll down to fit 6 questions. Well, this is a good one.
So I guess the question is how do those questions actually get the job for the user to be done? Why are you asking those? Well, let's just say you need to be able to provide them some information on that. So I guess the question is any of that stuff implicit already? So like, has your marketing led to a particular channel where you know where this user's coming from? Could it be that you should have something up front which determines the disposition? I didn't show it, or I didn't speak to it in regards to.
There we go, from Facebook ads.
Okay, so with Facebook ads, if you're using some sort of attribution tool like AppsFlow, you will have a sense of what campaign and what creative led to that thing. So that could give you a clue, and you may be able to subtract one question from that. 2 questions or whatever. So it's like if the answers to the questions are very simple clicks. So at the with domain, I'm still putting in that I want a house in Rockdale, or I want an apartment in Rockdale, and I want to pay between 900 and 1.5. Then that's the case. So that's the equivalent of 4 questions, if you like.
4 steps. 4 steps, versus 6 questions. Direct to website and ask around 6 questions.
Sorry, I'm laughing.
It's the
you redirect out of the mobile. Well, can't say that sounds like a win for anybody. Sorry, am I allowed to say that?
Mobile first. You can say So not redirecting out of something if you've got them in your mobile app. Don't redirect them out. Keep them in context.
Even if you're iframing those questions inside a UI web view or something like that.
Keep them inside. And scrolling's okay. It doesn't have to be next step, next screen. Or it's kind of maybe you need to test it. It's hard to say.
Yeah, look, I think that's the equivalent of the above the fold thing. Like, if you can actually get people to see the whole context. But we saw with Monday how they were a little bit cheeky about that. So
they can.
Once you've got somebody started in the process, they may want to finish it. So.
Okay. All right. Another one about an internal app with poor uptake.
That would be all B2B apps.
Yeah, or B2B.
People only use B2B apps because they have to.
Yeah. That one's a hard. I think that one's a hard. That's almost a session. It's without knowing the specifics as well. It's quite a hard one.
Well,
right.
So I think tours and guides and things like that sometimes works for the enterprise. So being able to roll out.
People will sit and read them.
Yeah,
the guide.
yeah. So there is that, and again, videos sometimes do as well too. But the uptake may be because it's not tied into the business process.
Yeah.
So like if there is some incentives that come out of, like the person's KPIs depend on something that's actually input into the application.
Yeah.
That, I'm guessing too much, and I'd be happy to have the conversation outside, but is the uptake really to do with, it's like, God, I was
the
around
app itself.
I was around when Lotus Notes was around.
Yeah.
Oh, let's roll out a discussion database, and nobody would ever use it because it wasn't tied into the core transactional elements of the person's day-to-day work.
Yeah, they might need a KPI saying, you will enter at least one discussion per week into the.
Yeah, well,
that would be really hard to sell, but that's what you're talking about, right?
Something around that. So the uptake is really best tied into a business process.
Yeah. And then this will be the last question, just because we've got to wrap up. Is onboarding part of UX CX space, or is it a separate space? Would a UX CX designer be thinking about onboarding aspects, or does it need a separate skill?
Yeah, it's one of those, the spaces are really blurred. I kind of think about it as part of a CX type thing. I mean, it's like sometimes the customers for us are product, and sometimes it's customer success as well too. So it's definitely, onboarding is definitely a part of the user journey, and as I've kind of made out, that continuous onboarding is the mark of deepening the relationship between the user and your application. So I think it's definitely part of the full user experience, but obviously there's that feature layer. That's you're always going to be judged based on the features of your application doing what they want them to do. So
and that's what I think for me. It kind of depends on the customer. In an enterprise sale, it probably belongs in customer success. But then if you're a bottoms-up SaaS company, or you're a B2C style company, then it probably belongs. I would kind of lean to a product manager who's got responsibility for. Their literally title is product manager onboarding if you're in a bigger, or product manager activation, or if you're in an even bigger team, product manager specific step of activation, and they're owning.
I'd agree with that. I think that just in the B2E, you also get sometimes that's owned by corporate transformation, education. And they're kind of like they're never going to get anything on the product roadmap. We're rolling it out, and what you're replacing there is you're replacing flying people into head office to go through a training session. So some of the tools, like what we do, is help actually increase adoption, particularly in remote offices and retail shops and stuff like that.
Thank you, everyone. We're past 4. Just want to say thank you for your time, everyone.
Thanks, folks.
Appreciate it. And see you all soon. Thank you.
Ciao.